Hey guys, how you doing? Bill Demas from Herman Wells, and we are doing our annual football preview. We're going to do college football today. I have some guests with me today. We have Keith Stahl, Herman Wells. He's going to talk about the ACC. We have Kris Parker. He is a local criminal defense attorney, one of our trusted referrals that is here, and he's going to talk about Marshall and also step in an emergency basis and take the Big 12. We have Daniel Kennell. He is an associate with the firm that does construction litigation, and he's going to talk about the SEC and the Gators. I like it because his name is Danny Kennell, and he's a Gator.
Yeah, you and every judge I go in front
Yeah.
of.
Then we have Alan Gustafson, one of my partners that runs the construction division, talking about the Big Ten and Ohio State. I don't know if you can pick that up. And we have Victor Lucas from Flagship Bank, the reigning two-time champion Best of the Bay Bank. There he is.
Nice.
And he's talking about USF and the Power Five. So, guys, what I'm going to moderate, I'm really not, I know this is shocking to you guys. I'm really not going to give a lot of opinions. I'm just going to be the moderator. I have to limit myself for certain reasons. So, I'm going to start off with a simple question, and we'll just go around the table, starting with Victor. Is college football healthier now with the playoff system instead of the ESPN picking SEC national championship system that was going on for years?
Healthier in terms of financially, absolutely. From a fan's perspective, I don't enjoy it as much.
Okay, Alan.
I thought we were talking about football, not football. So, I don't know. I'm gonna have to pass on that one.
I'll say bring back the BCS. We had it right. No, but in all seriousness, I mean the 14 playoff. I think that worked the best. And obviously they're talking about going 2014 right now. I don't think it's as good as it could be.
I got to disagree. I think that 12 teams, what we're at right now, 12. I think 16 would be ideal because I think it just makes more sense. But there's going to be teams left out. It's just like the March Madness. There's going to be teams left out. Why not have teams 16, 17 get left out instead of 3 and 4 get left out? So I think it brings a little parity. Maybe you have to cut the season down a little bit so that you're not playing 15, 16 games for these kids. That's hard on them. But I think the playoff system is a lot more fun to watch for a fan.
Yeah, I have to agree with Kris. I think it's healthier in that respect. Playoffs were, man, how many years did we beg for playoffs? And then we finally got some playoffs, right? So in that respect, the competition side is healthier. But I also agree with Victor. For a fan and NIL and introducing kind of like that pro element where you've got free agents that bounce from team to team, and we don't get to see the development of the freshmen come up and finally get their time to shine as a junior. Like we got to back in the '90s. For that reason, I think overall we are experiencing growth pains, and so it's not as healthy overall. But we've got some things to build on, and hopefully we rein in NIL's effect and it gets to a better place.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly talk about some rule changes because there's some really interesting rule changes, and one of them is for targeting. If somebody gets charged with targeting, they now dismiss the rest of that game, not that game and the next game. And then there's a progressive discipline. If they keep on getting charged with it, then it goes farther. I want to talk about that real quick. I like it because in one way there is, some of these kids can't react that quickly. Somebody changes their pad level and all of a sudden it's targeting the kids out. But player safety wise, if you're in a big game and there's 5 minutes left, do you come in and take somebody's block off? Because what's the penalty? You just missed the last 5 minutes. So anybody have any thoughts on that rule change? Because I think that it's going to make the game more exciting, but I don't know if there's going to be some more injury because of it.
Last year, you didn't miss the second game if the president called the commissioner of the league.
Yeah.
but no, I think it's a good idea. I don't think you should. I mean, you're talking about a large percentage of this kid's possible career in one game.
Right.
What if it's the biggest game of the year next week? What about levels of targeting?
Right.
You know, like we have in basketball. Don't they have an NBA levels of flagrant fouls?
Flagrant foul
Yeah.
1, flagrant foul 2.
2,
Yep.
and maybe for the ones that are a little bit more, egregious, maybe they lose the next game. Maybe
That's what I wondered, if we'd see like conference suspensions, like if somebody's committed one of those egregious ones. Yeah, although they would only sit out that game per the usual. Maybe they face a 1-game suspension per the conference or NCAA. Maybe that's an option.
But I think what we've seen with Texas Tech and some of the stuff that these bigger conferences have done, they're not going to do anything that's detrimental to the conference. The next thing is that they took offensive pass interference and mimicked the NFL. So instead of 15 yards, it's 10 yards. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I think that moves the game along and it's fair. Does anybody have a problem with them going from 15 yards to 10 yards on offensive pass interference?
No.
I don't. The NFL has it, so it's...
you have to do that.
Now, the last one is my favorite. Alan doesn't believe it's a real rule change, but it is. It is the 2026 fair catch field goal rule, meaning beginning with this season, a team that is awarded or completes a fair catch may attempt a special field goal at the exact spot of the catch by either a place kick with a holder, no kicking tee, or a rugby drop kick that has to hit the ball ground first. Unlike a regular field goal, there is no snap, there is no rush, the defense is 10 yards back, and the kick occurs from the exact spot, not the hash mark. That, to me, opens up so many possibilities, because when you're deep in your territory, you run the ball 3 times, you punt the ball with 3 seconds left, game's over. There's no way, unless they run it back. Now, they fair catch it, they can line up and have one of these rugby kickers, punters, come in and do a 60-yard drop kick, or these kickoff specialists now are kicking 70 yards. All you got to do is get it through the uprights, and it's 3 points.
That's wild.
Isn't that to me, that makes it so much fun.
Is this Canadian football?
Well, no, this is. But remember, that drop kick has always been a rule. Doug Flutie scored.
Yeah.
So now they're doing it, I guess, to add more offense to the game. I don't know. But here's the question: with the way that the college football is now, is it a novelty or is it going to excite games? Now, you give me this in the 90s when you had Frank Beamer and you had Lou Holtz and you had Bobby Bowden, they're going to do that stuff, because those were the guys that were running the fumble rooskies and all those, trick plays. You don't see that anymore. So do you think some of these more sophisticated college coaches that are trying to run it like NFL teams are going to do something like this? I don't know. Kris, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, think of like Bill Belichick, right? I mean, he's going to find the rule changes, and he's going to make. I mean, and he's literally a college football coach now. So, I mean, if anybody's going to do it, I think it would be somebody like him, take advantage of the rules when other people aren't looking, right?
Yeah, if only he had a team.
Yeah, he's
He'd
got a
be able
kicker.
to do something.
I wonder if we'll see any run backs like Auburn versus Alabama, right?
Six, man.
Somebody takes that long kick and
Right.
get it returned.
Yeah.
I
Right,
wonder if
because
that'll happen more.
because that's the other end of the rule, is that I would assume that if you don't make it in, you have somebody under the goalpost to run
Right.
back.
That's a live play.
It's a live play.
Right.
Free
Well,
return.
and I'm going to give some reference here. Besides being a great football fan, and I've coached football with Kris, he is also an official. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
rule stuff that he knows now.
Long time ago. Yeah.
Long time ago, but
Yeah.
you know the rules.
So,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, more than Alan, but still, I mean, you still know the rules. So,
it is interesting.
so now we're going to go around the conferences. We're going to start with the SEC. So, Danny, is the SEC still the best conference top to bottom, or is now the Big Ten the best conference?
Look, argue about it all the time with everyone, obviously, everyone here. But look, I'm not going to be that guy that's going to sit here and pound my chest about the SEC. I'm not going to sound like Sankey. The reality is, SEC team has not played for a championship in 3 years. But I think if you look at the talent of the conference and the parity, I mean, it's an objective fact. Double the amount of guys are going to the draft than from the SEC compared to the Big 12 or the Big 10. So I think the conference has more talent. I think there's more parity. And the way I look at it too, take Ohio State's playing Minnesota. There's nobody on that Minnesota roster that Ohio State would really want on their team or need. Every team in the SEC, whether it's Auburn playing Alabama or Texas playing Kentucky, whoever it is, there's somebody on that other roster that you want to bring on. There's just such a depth of talent, and it's not being displayed in the playoffs now because everybody's got money. It's that part's out of it. But I think the SEC is still the most talented conference, and unfortunately, I have to leave with that. I hope that we can win a championship this year. But
Now, in your estimation this year, how many SEC teams can realistically reach the playoff without help? Meaning without that, and it is a thing. It's that ESPN bias. Without that, how many teams can realistically from the SEC go and deserve to go?
Well, I think if you look at obviously Texas and Georgia, I think those are the two best teams in the driver's seat. But when you look at these schedules, like you got a team like Ole Miss, they play Texas, they play Georgia, they play Oklahoma. Same goes for Oklahoma. They play all those teams as well. So you've got 4 or 5 teams that can control their destiny to go to the playoff. They're playing the top dogs in the SEC. Now, whether it shakes out where it's just we have to put all our hope in Texas and Georgia, those are 2 playoff teams, that's fine. But I think that there's space for the SEC to have 3 teams in. It's just I'm taking on Ole Miss.
And this still amazes me about the SEC, which I told I keep my opinions out of it. But as a I went to Florida State. As a Florida State fan, you will never hear out of my mouth, our hope rests in Miami. I want Miami to lose every game.
Right.
Clemson, because of the rivalry. I think it's like that with Alan can prove me wrong, but with Michigan and Michigan State and Penn State, I don't know how the SEC goes to your dreaded rival like Florida goes. I hope Georgia wins it. That's your rival.
That's pretty rare.
Can we
Well,
celebrate?
I think that speaks though to what's going on because you're taking so much flack from the Big Ten. There is pride in the SEC. It just means more.
I think every conference besides the SEC has become non-regionalized. It's become spread out across the country. Let's talk about your cough. Let's talk about the ACC.
Yeah.
Good God.
I know. Now we're West Coast.
Coast to coast. West Coast, East Coast. But the SEC has remained in the South, except for maybe if somebody wants to argue Texas is not the true South.
Texas is not, yeah.
But besides
Missouri.
Oklahoma and Texas and Missouri,
Missouri.
but they're at least staying in what you could geographically call the South.
Sure.
But the old South, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, those schools are just the ones that are always going to be there. And I think that's why they have a little bit more camaraderie amongst them.
It is still weird. I'm sorry. As a football fan, we all have rivals, and imagine rooting for that rival.
Yeah.
It's just in the name of the conference. It's just the opposite, I would think, because if they win, then they're going to get all the recruits that you're battling with. So why do you want your rival to have a leg
because the
up?
South's going to rise again. That's what they think. There's more to it than football.
But I think there's also the halo effect that the regional and the conference integrity or the pride allows them to get probably their greater share in the playoff seedings as a result of that. So I think that's part of the reason why they're unified in their approach and support for their rivals.
Another instance of money ruining things.
Could be a theme.
So Danny, what lower echelon SEC team, meaning not your Alabamas, not your Georgias, your Texas, but your Vandys, your Kentuckys, your those teams. Which one do you think is capable of breaking this year, going up and competing for the SEC championship or get into the playoffs?
I don't know about compete for an SEC championship. I think that's going to be stuck in that top tier. I'd put Georgia, Texas in their own league, and then from there it's a toss-up between LSU, Ole Miss. I'm low on A&M, but I would put A&M in there, and I won't be biased like the Gators don't right now fall into that. But I think like I was saying with these schedules, it's just you're not getting out of the SEC as an underdog making it to the conference championship. You're going to have to play these big dogs like a Kentucky. Not only do you have to beat Georgia once, you've got to beat Texas. You got to beat Oklahoma. You've got to do it consistently. I just don't. I think I don't know of a team that's not in that top tier in the SEC that can do that twice in a year. Maybe you get an upset at home, right, against a Texas or who knows.
But like Vandy last year, they could have made the playoffs without winning the SEC championship. So let's get away from winning the SEC championship, because that's another question later on I'm going to ask all of us about, are championships even worth it anymore with the playoff system? Because we've seen, like in basketball, they really aren't, but they still get played. My point is, what team, like Vandy last year, was knocking on the door that nobody expects, that's going to be there saying, we deserve to be in the playoffs?
I think if you want to use Vandy example, I think this year Missouri could be the Vandy.
Okay.
I mean, they've got the best running back in, I believe, in all college football. Not too strong of a schedule. I mean, I think he's the best, but I mean, Kewan Lacey, the one above him. I mean, at least in the conference. So, if I had to pick a super dark horse to break through all those tiers, I'd say Missouri.
So, which team is the most overrated?
I'm a self-proclaimed, Lane Kiffin hater. I'm gonna have to say LSU, because the expectations at LSU. I don't think that Kiffin showing up is going to just immediately make this a playoff team. And the only thing I can think of where we had a team that had this amount of transfers, this amount of hype and clout over one coach showing up, was Colorado. I mean, they had a Heisman winner. They brought in, I think, 50 transfers. I mean, it was a brand new team, and Indiana's a perfect example. That was an old team. They had their system, one of the best teams I've seen compared to that 2019 LSU team. But I think the expectations are just so high at LSU. Look, I'm not saying they're going to lose, but there's a world where they lose against Clemson.
Right.
I think that there's just it's not going to be. And Kiffin, I have to go on my Kiffin tirade. I'm so happy
with that
he ended up at LSU, because that's the end of the road. Kiffin has been hopping team to team. He's this golden boy that's now, I don't know how old he is. He's in his 50s. Like, he's always been the guy with all the potential that he's going to win you a championship. Well, this is it. You've got everybody you could ever want. He's got all the money in the world. They have all these high class transfers. You've got there's no excuses. I mean, he has to perform, and I think that cauldron of pressure. Not to mention, you've got Sam Levitt coming in. I mean, I like Sam Levitt, but is that who we really think is going to lead LSU to a championship this year and bring this team together? I think that's why I have Clemson LSU circled. I think it's two clashes of Dabo's the only old school coach that believes in. I mean, obviously he's different in the transfer portal, but fresh recruiting high schoolers, building up your team, and you've got this new age. Lane Kiffin brings in 50 transfers. We'll see. I haven't seen it work yet though, where you can have a championship team that fast.
Who is the best non-quarterback player in the SEC that we all should watch out for?
I mean, in terms of defense, I got to go Colin Simmons, the edge rusher from Texas. I mean, that guy's going to be top 5 pick. And couple that, too, with Muschamp coming back in this DC. So he's just going to have a field day with that, disguising coverages. I think he's the best non-quarterback in there. If I have to go offensive side, kind of sticking with Texas again, I would say Cam Coleman, the transfer out to Texas. And we were talking about Ahmad Hardy. Mm-hmm. I think he's the best running back in college football.
So give us one bold prediction of the college football season that you actually believe.
I actually believe that Ole Miss will not only make the playoff, but go deep into it. I think they have the best quarterback in the SEC. Trinidad Chambliss is amazing, and if you break it down, I mean, he's got his pre-play. He's the best at breaking down these coverages, and also his pass completions were better when being blitzed as opposed to guys sitting back in zone. I think he's the most experienced, polished. Not to mention you got Kewan Lacey as a running back there, and Ole Miss they were still good without Kiffin last year. They still made that run, and they play Texas, they play Georgia, they play Oklahoma. It's a very brutal schedule, but they're in control of their destiny, and I'm high on Ole Miss this year.
Okay, so you're wearing the gear, so we got to ask you UF's outlook, and what do you think that their final record is going to be, and do they make the playoffs?
All right, I'll take in reverse order. I don't think we make the playoffs.
Okay.
I don't want to come off as a psycho. I would love it, but I feel like that kills my credibility in time. But I'm not that crazy. But I think this team, it's going to center around the O-line. We got 2 returning starters. You lose Jake Slaughter at center. You lose a O-line that really was, supposed to be the backbone of that team. Obviously, there was so much going on with Napier. Who knows? But if the O-line can perform, look, we've got, and that's not been the issue of UF is talent. The talent positions are incredible. We got an elite receiving corps. I think we've got one of the best duos in the backfield. You got Jaden Baugh, Montgomery, Pryor, cycle those guys out, and I'm really excited to see what Buster Faulkner does. He had the 12th best offense at Georgia Tech, and it's him and the DC White. They've been doing more with less their entire career, and this I'm excited to see what they do. He's got all the tools, he's got all the talent, and obviously at the quarterback position, is it going to be Philo? Is it going to be Jones? I think Philo is going to be week one guy, but Faulkner, he runs a lot of RPO, a lot of play action, and one thing that we didn't see out of Billy that I think we're going to get this year is to run the ball. I mean, he bases his offense on running the ball. We have a fantastic running back, and I think when you pair that with a quarterback, I mean, it'll probably be Philo who understands the system. There's too much talent. There's too much speed to cover everything. I mean, you bring him in the box, we've got elite receivers, right? It's all going to go through that run game, and I think that's what Billy failed to do last year. I mean,
final record.
Well, Vegas has him at 7.5. I put him at 8. I think we steal one. From the Texas
awesome.
Ole Miss.
And I'm just going to say right there, I agree with your contention that it all goes through the offensive line. As an O-line coach and center is the most important position, I agree with that too. My son played center, so yes, it all goes through the offensive line. All right, we're going to move. Unfortunately, I just thought we'd get this over with early, the Big Ten. Alan's going to talk about that. Alan, is the Big Ten the best conference top to bottom, or is it SEC still the top conference top to bottom?
Yes.
Top to bottom.
Yes,
the
the
Big
Ten's the best conference.
Okay.
Shots fired.
That's at the top.
Now, how much is time zone changes and travel going to affect the Big Ten now that they're spread across the country?
I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it affects it that much. We only have 4 teams that are spread across the country. So, UCLA, Washington, USC, that other team, Oregon. So you got 4 teams. Those 4 teams are going to play each other. So for those 4 teams, they're going to be doing a little bit more travel. But for most of the other Big Ten teams, it's probably 2 additional road games where they have to make a trip. And the Big Ten, unlike the SEC, we can actually afford to put our players up in nice planes and fly them across the country first class. So they're not flying Southwest across the country like the SEC guys are. So so we're okay. We're gonna be all right. We can charter a couple planes a year. We can afford it in the Big Ten. Unlike the SEC.
I got a question that just comes from me after watching all these playoff runs the last 3 years, how good Big Ten teams have done. Was that a sign to the nation that Big Ten style of football, big aggressive offensive lines, running the ball, that's what really wins championships instead of all this, spread it out, pass the ball, high potency, instead of starting with that big offensive line, big defensive line, winning the trenches, wearing them down, and then, which is Big Ten football. It's always been Big Ten football.
It's not Big Ten football anymore. We live in a very cutting edge world. We got this AI now in the world. We got this thing called MySpace, which is like really top. We got this like Twitter thing nowadays. So we live in a very cutting edge world where just things are changing at a just you blink and they just change, Bill. And so and the Big Ten has changed right with it, right with MySpace and Facebook and all the other AI and all the other stuff. So if you look at our teams now, we've got Oregon, which runs a pass happy attack. You've got Ohio State, which has always been like a pro for the last few years. It's been a pro style offense where we've got a very balanced attack. I mean, sure we've got Bo Jackson as our running back, but we've got the greatest wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith in the country. And we air it out, so it's not your traditional attack,
right?
Anymore.
But the basis of when Michigan won it, and Indiana, and even you guys, is that you had time to throw the ball because you just had this massive offensive line, and when you needed 3 yards, which Indiana showed against one of the best defensive lines in the country last year, which was Miami. They're going to line up and say, we're going there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they went there. That is what I'm talking about. where people were trying to say, well, it really doesn't matter with their offensive line because we're going to do screens and we're going to run outside the tackles. Your teams bully people, run inside the tackles, and then that builds their passing games.
2 yards in a cloud of dust, right?
Well, yeah. It comes down to the fact that I like it because it's showing that that's what football is, and that's what you can win with. And even the teams that won in the SEC in the past, I mean, Georgia had some of the best defensive fronts when they were winning those things. They were amazing, but their offensive line was good, but it wasn't what I would call top tier because they were getting the ball out. They had athletes everywhere. They were dumping the ball, running screens and stuff like that. So,
And to be successful in the Big Ten, you're always going to need to be able to run the ball.
right.
I mean, it's going to be. We have this thing called snow up north, and so you're always going to need to be able to like run the ball because you can't throw the ball. I mean, you look at Northwestern and some of the wind that you get up there in Chicago. It's just you got to be able to run the ball. So, and I think the only dome team in the Big Ten is, well, no, we don't even have a dome team because there's we play a lot. We play our championship game in the Colt Stadium, which is a dome, but no team has a dome even, I don't believe. So it's you got to be able to run the ball in the Big Ten, but Big Ten's going to dominate for the next 10 years, 20 years, just like the SEC dominated the 10 or 20 years before the last three when you had Michigan, Ohio State, and then Indiana win back-to-back championships. But yeah, I mean, it's just I hate to say it because I've always supported small market teams, but the Big Ten just has so much more money, so much more resources than any other conference, and they're just going to dominate. You'll have an SEC team occasionally that wins here and there, but this year it's going to be Oregon, Ohio State, or Indiana that win, and probably the next year, and the next year, and the next year. So
Can I ask a question? Real quick?
Sure.
How much of that financial domination can be attributed to going and getting teams from giant cities that really bring nothing to the conference except for marketability and bigger TV markets?
The
Rutgers,
SEC
LA.
Yeah, the SEC started it by bringing in Texas and by trying to bring in.
I think
Oklahoma.
Rutgers was before Texas, right?
Well, Rutgers is always Rutgers was probably a money play. Bringing in Rutgers and Maryland, they wanted the East Coast, but that was years ago, and things had kind of settled down. And then the SEC kind of broke the logjam by bringing in Texas and Oklahoma, and then of course the Big Ten responds by bringing in the four schools that we brought in: USC, Oregon, Washington, and UCLA. So,
but wouldn't you argue that Oklahoma and Texas bring a lot football-wise to the conference, as Maryland and Rutgers brings you New York and DC?
Yeah, but that's not the comparison. The comparison is Texas and Oklahoma versus USC versus Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, Oregon and USC bring in a lot of both traditional football powerhouses. Plus, they bring in marketing. USC brings in the Los Angeles crowd. Oregon obviously brings in Nike University out there. So yeah, I hate to say it, but it's about money. But the last couple moves that we had were definitely, I think, football-driven moves. We didn't bring in the other remaining Pac-10 schools.
Yeah.
So before you move on, there is an observation that I saw that since NIL, the implementation of NIL, and money has been a leveling issue, the SEC hasn't won a championship.
Yeah.
So since money's been above board, Big Ten, because they have
Above board.
Above board, Big Ten has dominated. They have these big, massive alumni bases that just have accumulated a lot of capital and generational wealth that's used to support those
Well, yeah, and
organizations.
talking to Alan today, he made a good point. I am glad that that's on video because I'll probably never say that again. Is that you have these colleges that have been around forever but have not been. I mean, how many kids are at Florida? 30?
Oh, gosh.
No,
20?
Nah,
20?
yeah, they're like 50,
Yeah.
50, 60.
Yeah.
Right. Ohio State, Michigan have had 50 to 60, thousand kids and have stadiums that hold hundreds of thousands of people for generations. So it's all those people and all that wealth, and where Alan said where Florida split up really between three: Miami, Florida, and Florida State. Ohio is the whole state, one. Michigan is 1.5. Michigan State. So my point is always that money is going to do it. So Alan, what team in the Big Ten that nobody thinks is a contender is going to pop its head up this year and shock some people?
I just think that Penn State's got a chance because of their weak schedule. Yeah, I mean, I just think that they don't play Ohio State, they don't play Indiana, they don't play Oregon. Their toughest game is against USC, and it's at Penn State.
They do open with Marshall, though.
Yeah, that is true.
You gotta give them that.
Yeah, they gotta get past the Thundering Herd. So it's gonna be a nail biter. So
you gotta call them the Penn State Hawkeyes. That's their whole roster now.
Yeah,
it's all Iowa State.
Yeah, but Penn State, unfortunately, they've got such a weak schedule that I could see them going 1 or 2 losses, and then it's going to give the committee a headache because what do you take a 1 or 2 loss Penn State team with an inferior record over maybe a 2 or 3 loss USC team
who's played people?
Yeah, who plays? USC's got a tough schedule. But I also like USC as well. Those would be the teams in the Big Ten that I would take. The Big Ten has more top to bottom quality than it's ever had before. You've got Oregon, obviously Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana are your top 3. But then you've got USC and Penn State, which have been revamped and are ready to go. And then unfortunately you got that team up north, and you've got Wisconsin, you've got Iowa, which is always tough. You've got Nebraska, which has been reloading. Believe it or not.
Which Nebraska always shocks me because from where they were in the 90s to be totally irrelevant is something that, as a Florida State fan, scares me because we're there now too, and and no matter what they do, no matter who they bring in, no matter what conference, and that's another school that should have all the money in the world because they're the only team out there, and they just can't make it click. It just never.
How
I can
much
never
money
understand.
does it take to get a kid to go to Nebraska?
That's a lot of money.
I guess that's the question.
Yeah, they do recruit heavily from legacies. Like they definitely have a lot. They've got a really good pipeline, and they're recruiting from legacies and those guys. And the one school that I didn't even mention was Washington. Yeah. They don't even sleep on Washington. Yeah. So it's. And who knows what UCLA is going to do? Who knows what Minnesota can do? Minnesota's going to pack up a coach. And then Northwestern and Rutgers are all reloading as well. Big Ten is this is the most solid the Big Ten has been that I've ever seen. It used to be just Michigan and Ohio State, and now it's you've got some solid teams there because they've all got, I hate to say it, but again, money. They've all got money. They've got the biggest TV deal. They can dole out the most money. They can. They've all got good, solid coaches, and it's a new era.
Ohio State playoffs, and how far do they go?
I can't comment on Ohio State because I'm too much of a fan. So setting Ohio State aside,
how many teams does the Big Ten put into the playoffs? At
least 3, up to 5. But I think it would be crazy. But
Dan, are you okay? You need some more beer?
Yeah,
Dan automatically just started to sweat.
5.
No, you got
not have math.
You got at least 3 teams.
Gosh, you got a Florida State guy and a Gator agreeing on something.
You got at least 3 teams.
Dogs and cats living together. I mean, it's crazy.
Indiana's my hot take too. I think they missed the playoffs.
Indiana,
yeah, dude, that's one of my hot takes. And Indiana reminds me of the 2019 LSU. They missed the playoff after Burrow.
I love Kris and Victor through this whole thing. All of us are talking, and they're just sitting back going, just coming in with just shots.
I don't know.
I think they get 3 teams in,
okay.
But there's 5 teams that are probably going to be deserving. Well, there's 4 teams that are going to be deserving, and then there's going to be Penn State, which they just don't play anybody.
That's what Penn State always does.
Yeah.
They get the 2-loss season. It's like When they lose to Ohio State, they do a whiteout. Nothing matters.
So we're going to move on to the ACC. And to show you that there is no ACC bias, Keith, is the ACC competing for playoffs or national championships, or just competing to remain relevant and not to create a Power 3 instead of Power 4?
Certainly, they're trying to fight for survival, I think, right? We're seeing this league move towards a Power 2. We're going to have like the AFC and the NFC anytime now. I'm waiting for this to happen. But until that occurs, yes, I think the ACC is trying to keep their foot in the door, so to speak. We already are, unlike the SEC, though, competing for championships, a la, Miami last year. So we at least are showing up in the game, and we have that top team talent.
Which team in the ACC? Well, first of all, let me ask you this: do you consider Notre Dame an ACC team?
Do they consider themselves an ACC team? And the answer would be no. So
They're a SoFi team.
I think that relationship's mutual. They feel they're not an ACC team, and we feel that they are not an ACC team.
Okay. So when you say ACC teams making the playoffs, you're not considering Notre Dame that gets their automatic sweetheart deal
Correct.
if they place in the top 12.
That's right. I
Okay.
do think they're in this year, but aside from that, I think there's a possibility of 2 ACC teams.
Which team in the ACC has the most chance of actually being a consistent national championship contender right now?
Miami. Nobody is on their level. They right now are
Because they have the money.
best built team. Yes, money, coaching staff, continuity, talent, South Florida,
And
all
South
of
Florida,
it,
location.
right?
How Miami for years let all that talent leave
Yeah.
South Florida.
Mismanagement.
And Danny and I and Keith were happy that they let it
Yes.
because we can name off guys that played for our teams that went to Miami Central and went to Carroll City and
Dalvin
went
Cook.
to Dalvin
Right? I mean,
Cook,
yeah.
Freeman. Dalvin Cook and Freeman were in the same backfield in high school. And Golden didn't want to look at either of them when he coached
Yeah.
Miami. How do you Amari Cooper was on that team.
Right.
Imagine that high school team. I mean, crazy.
Crazy.
But Miami now is not letting those guys go. And I think it starts with the head coach, who is a monster.
Yeah.
Old offensive line guy, just has that swagger back. When I saw Miami play this year and they were pushing after the play and they were running their mouth, and I'm like, that's the Miami I used to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Just bring it back
Plays
to
me.
you. I don't like
Yeah.
Kris.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but he is.
Right.
And it's,
He-
you
he
said
has.
it's a physical team.
I mean, they're-
good lord.
Their offensive
That's a
line
cool.
was putting it on people, but put it on people. They
Yeah.
just didn't care.
Yeah, talk about swarming to the ball.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Good lord.
So, but how about Clemson? Because, I mean, Dabo is – I like the way Dabo coaches. Of course, it's a rival, but he is –
The end is near.
yeah,
The end is near with Clemson. They have been on a steady decline. This year, by the way, tons of turnover at Clemson. They lost their quarterback, Klubnik, for the past 3 years. He's gone, right? Offensive line, all gone. Defensive line, gone. They are heavy on turnover. So wait. I predict that they are going to be struggling to get to 7 wins this year. I really think they're going to have a tough team. If you're talking about a name, a college name
Danny's
that
having
you give a
a-
lot
Well,
of weight, if you give Clemson a lot of weight, you're giving that based on their history, not as the current program that exists today.
See, here's the problem: is that I just started a dynasty with Clemson in the new football game. So I know. what's
Sorry
going on.
about your NCAA football.
So I know
and
the
those
team.
ratings
I know the team.
don't match.
Vizina's a good quarterback. They have an elite group of receivers, and they have a good running back core. I'm rooting for Clemson this year, and I'm certainly rooting for them to beat LSU. That if we're picking upsets, that's already put it. I think Clemson comes in the Death Valley.
Well, I know you're Kiffin hate. You're going to take Clemson's side on that. But Vizina hasn't proven anything.
It's what I like about Dabo, and I think it's why it's going to work. He still has players who stay in the system and progress. He was a backup to Klubnik for 2 years. He knows the system. He's still a 4-star recruit. I think he's out of Texas or something.
Klubnik wasn't that great. And let's take it back further. DJU Nope. Terrible.
All right,
let's
well,
start
that was a
talking.
mess. That was
Let's
a
talk
mess.
about his track record with quarterbacks. They are not great. They
After
come in
Trevor.
5-star hyped up,
Yeah,
and then they get Dabo-fied, and all of a sudden they're transferring out of the program or being mediocre in their.
I think this year is the year we know. I think this year we know if Dabo's really in trouble. or if it's-
Victor's over there convulsing because he needs to say something.
Yeah.
So
he's dying.
Dabo, someone pointed out the reference that passed him by because he refused to embrace the NIL and the transformation of the game, and I'm still not convinced that he has bought into the new way of doing things. And until he accepts that, I don't have any faith that they will be able to be relevant.
Yeah, he was like Yahoo.
Yeah.
Technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So an ACC team that in the old ways was looked on that lower echelon that you think is going to start making progress because of now they're old established schools, they have a lot of money and endowment. What is that team that you think is going to start picking at Miami and Clemson for that top spot or playoff spot?
I've got two potentially. First, I think Louisville. Louisville is building a heck of a program. They've got a Ohio State transfer coming in at quarterback, Lincoln Keenholz, I believe it is, that's coming in. And they've also got one of the top backs in the ACC. They've got a solid offensive line, great defense. I really think Louisville is going to compete. And in addition to them, SMU is having a renaissance, aren't they? I mean, that was the team that faced the death penalty. They've come back. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, I think, in Jennings. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be talked about in the draft, right? Great dual threat guy, threw for 3,600 yards.
He's a Lamar Jackson.
30 touchdowns last year, ran
but-
for 400.
But Keith, doesn't that go to what Alan and I were saying, that SMU literally, because of where it is and because of their alumni and because of the oil, prints money.
Yeah.
So like I had the opportunity to go see a bowl game at SMU Stadium, and to see the stadium and the campus and the Bush Library is right there, and it was insane the money that was there. And now that they're allowed to do what they got,
The thing that buried them is now legal. And it's like, of course they're going to thrive.
so who is the best non-quarterback player?
Malachi Tony. Anybody want to take that argument? No way, right? I mean, the guy's like setting Miami records. Last year, he set their single season reception record as a true freshman, right?
In your league, right? That's what you're talking about.
No, for Miami.
Yeah, but you're not talking about the entire NCAA.
Oh no, not necessarily. No. Although there is an argument, him versus Smith. There's an argument there. We'll see the progression, but different players to a degree. But I've never seen the talent like Tony.
People
Tony's different.
Yeah, people need to understand that when Tony was in the national championship game last year, he should have been a senior in high school.
Yeah.
He graduated early.
Yeah.
And classed down. Everybody was he classed up. Everybody used to class down so that an extra year of football in high school, so they look better to go in. Now they're getting money, they're classing up so they can get out earlier and get paid. But he was amazing when he was out there doing stuff. It's kind of like when we were watching the World Cup and you have 17 and 18-year-old kids playing with grown-ass men. It's like, holy crap. One bold prediction of the ACC that you actually believe.
It will be no more in 5 years.
Ooh, wow. The ACC is going to be gone in 5 years.
Yeah.
Like irrelevant or like it
Gone.
like Pac-12?
Gone.
Dissolved.
Gone.
All right,
Pac-12 gone.
Yeah.
that's feasible.
Well, which leads to another question I'm not going to ask because that could be the whole conversation about what conferences absorb Clemson and FSU. But
Big two.
but here's the problem: Miami's the problem because being private and educationally whatever, they don't fit in. Miami doesn't really fit in anywhere.
Could be independent.
They could do the Notre Dame.
They could be.
So
Doesn't
I'm
make
going to
sense.
ask you this question, and I'm not going to get up and walk away because the truth hurts. FSU, their outlook. I got questions. Their outlook and final record, and does Norvell last the year?
Oh, this hurts
Like
me.
make it through the season.
Yeah.
As a fan,
They can't.
we are fighting to be bowl eligible this year. 6-6 is my prediction. We barely squeak out bowl eligibility. We keep Mike Norvell because we don't have the money to do anything
so
else.
dark.
Yeah.
so
And
dark.
we face another mediocre season coming up next year. Probably once again searching the transfer portal for a discount quarterback because we've made it clear
Yeah.
our intentions are right now to just try and survive to make it to the Big Two so that we can then get paid and then be able to play the game properly. And by the game, I mean paying an NIL. But until we get to that standpoint, we are going to be wallowing in mediocrity for the next 2 to 3
And a
years.
huge
until we can win.
hurricane slams into Tallahassee this fall too.
Might as
All
well.
that.
Well, they've got the their best player up there is that big giant magnet that repels the hurricanes. But aside from that, yeah,
I
that's
wasn't familiar with that.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
because we have a collider.
Yeah,
I can't
I thought it was
And they said that the collider is the one that veers them all away.
Oh,
Okay.
it's dark, bro.
Right.
I'm
So-
sorry.
Oh.
Sorry. I'm like Danny. You know, I'm not a psycho. I'm
Oh
very
no, I
realistic.
sympathize with you because we're in the same spot last year. It's what do you do with a coach you know is not going to be long term? You're stuck
Right.
with his contract. You know, it's a tough season.
Yeah,
Like, you just gotta
have
just
off.
you're looking and bracing and just
And I think it will be probably the same thing. I mean, you gotta.
why expect anything different?
No,
Yeah.
I agree.
So
Get serious, Florida State.
So, wow.